use two different breath techniques, and I just tell you what, it is so pivotal, man. It is so profound and so potent.
Was this valuable?
Oh, absolutely, bro. Absolutely. You've given me kind of a blueprint for how I'm going to start interviewing my clients and different things, and my people that I'm going to bring on.
Hi, and welcome to this new episode of my podcast debut, where I interview people like Christopher who are in the process of launching their podcast. And hopefully that inspires you, the viewer, right now to launch also your own podcast, or at least to have a good idea if it's for you and if it's the right time. So, Christopher, I'd love to start getting straight into it. What is your podcast idea?
Well, I've had an idea to kind of like what you're doing, interview like-minded people and share just a healing space, man. You know, because I've come from a path and a past of a lot of wreckage, you know, and I've been able to kind of reconcile and come. I wouldn't say full circle, but do a full 180 from my past and utilize my past. So I'm interested in connecting with people like that, you know, that have been down in the trenches and have turned their life around and are making a positive impact in this world. And instead of beating themselves up and playing the victim, I would like to interview people that are playing the victor, you know, and utilizing their mess and turning that mess into a message.
Beautiful, beautiful alchemy process, I would say. By the way, you have a name for it.
You know, I haven't. I've been mulling around a couple ideas, but I actually found that the one that I was thinking of, is already taken. So I'm still kind of in the process of figuring that out. But I think maybe, you know, as I get more into it, that it'll kind of just make itself known. I'm pretty good with making names up for different things, so I feel like once it clicks, it's gonna click, and it'll be catchy, you know.
Amazing.
So yeah, I'm not quite there yet.
Nice. I love it, but that's fine. Where are you at with the podcast?
Well, I've already interviewed probably three people, and it was kind of just on a whim. You know, I was like, I didn't even realize I was starting a podcast, and um, it kind of just ended up that way. And then I had somebody see me throwing some of my edits out there, and they wanted to interview me. So I've been interviewed, and I have these interviews, and I just have kind of been sitting on the back burner. So now it's like, okay, well, I think this is kind of the push that I needed to you know, get all that stuff edited and get it out there for the world to see. I think I maybe dealt with a few blockages around that too, kind of like being vulnerable with people and different stuff. But I feel like I've made a lot of headway in that realm. So I feel like this is the next step, you know. So I just want to say thank you first and foremost for taking the time out of your day to hold this space.
Thank you, thank you. And yeah, this is the next step also. This is another step. That's what I like with having people on this podcast for sure. Uh, can you tell me a little bit more about what are your goals with this podcast?
Well, for one, to inspire people, you know, maybe to just give that little bit of, you know, the silver lining, a little glimmer of hope, um, that, you know, maybe the suffering addict may see. You know, that's something that I've dealt with in the past, was addiction, drug addiction, and food addiction, and all these different things. So maybe if somebody can see that, hey, I've been there, I've been down in the trenches, maybe it'll offer them a little glimmer of hope. And then I look to, you know, educate people around gut health, somatic breath work, releasing trauma. All of these things have been absolutely pivotal in my recovery process. So I feel like that would be, those would be the three pillars, you know, gut health, inspiration, and releasing trauma. I think that would be, that sounds like the trifecta to me.
Amazing. Thank you. So you want to inspire other people. Anything else as goals to your podcast?
Well, maybe launch, support the business as well, get my business out there, bring some clients across, maybe some team members to add to the business repertoire, and so that we can help people, because that's what my businesses are all about. They're all about helping people. So the more people that we help, the more our bank account grows. So that's really that's the business model of all of my businesses, all of the different brand partnerships that I'm in. Is the size of your bank account equates to however many people you're helping. So, yeah, that would be another goal of the podcast, is to get that out there as well.
I love that. And what's your business?
So I've got several, man. I work with several superfood companies, and I work with a team of regenerative health practitioners. I work with a company called Purium, and we've got the most potent, nutrient-dense superfoods on the planet, the most rigorously tested. And my team of regenerative health practitioners to boot, they have all taken their messes and turn them into their messages. I've got teammates that I work with that have healed themselves from cancer and STDs and Hashimoto's, and all of these different things. And they have turned around and been able to help thousands of people with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, cancers, all these different things. And it's really just truly inspirational, man. So, um, you know, that's one of them. And then I work with somatic breathwork. I've got a somatic breathwork facilitator certification. So I help people with the breath clear out old patterns and different things that are no longer serving them, and kind of clear all that stuff out, just utilizing the breath, man. We use two different breath techniques, and I just tell you what, it is so pivotal, man. It is so profound and so potent. There is no need for any type of plant medicine. I realize there is a time and a place for shamans and plant medicine and all that stuff, but as a avid, enthusiast of all of that stuff, I have done a lot of the stuff. The only thing I really haven't done is ayahuasca. And I tell you what, man, when I found the breath, the breathing techniques that I teach, I was able to release lifetimes and probably generations of trauma. I don't know how far back it goes, but I just know that I feel 1,000,000 pounds lighter after my first session of somatic breath work. So once I had that session and was able to release all of the traumas and the things that were plaguing me, my son's death and all the different things, all of the past mistakes that I made, I just knew that I had to teach that. So I signed up to become a practitioner, and here we are, man. So I'm now leading people down that path, and it's really interesting to watch the whole process, because I love to see people go through what I went through, like, oh, I know, like when I watch them, I just know that they're having such a profound experience, and it just makes me want to keep doing it. It's not really work to me. It's a passion.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you for sharing, Christopher. And hmm, yeah, get high on your own supply. I like
Yes,
this, and
yes.
obviously, to the viewer, you can follow Christopher if you want to hear more about these practices. And also, thank you for watching so far. And if, like Christopher, you're considering starting your podcast, well, come on the show and come talk about it. So if you look in the description, you'll see the link there to contact me and to be on the show to talk about your podcast idea, even if it's just an idea for now. And Christopher, I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into the monetization aspect. Do you have well, let's say finding clients, and because you mentioned that, do you have a clear strategy around that already?
Um, I've kind of broke it down. I've got my goals where I want to be, say a 10K per month. And I do realize like what I have to sell or whatever, how many clients I have to bring in for that. But I'm still gaining clarity around that. I know that I'm really, what I'm looking to do is to align with people that already have a practice and are already, able to reach thousands, if not millions of people. That way that I can be an immediate benefit to them. I'm saying, hey, look, here's a cookie cutter practice. It's like literally we have the best products on earth, and then everything as far as the back office and everything's set up. So you just plug and play, let your people know, hey, I work with the team of regenerative health practitioners, and if I can't help you, they sure can. And that's kind of what I'm doing, and I am starting to align with these people. So it's kind of like I had to clear out a lot of the old things that I was holding on to, a lot of the blockages and stuff, so that I could align with those people. Because I do know it's a whole vibratory thing. If I'm not vibrating at that level that I'm looking for these people, then that these people are vibrating at, then it's never going to be a match.
Mm.
So yeah, it's been a lot of like personal development work that has gone into it. Lots of stuff on my end to be able to resonate with the people that I'm looking to bring into the business. But I do have clients that I'm helping with their health and all that stuff, the parasite cleansing and all that kind of stuff, and that's great. I love to do that, but I really want to help more people, and I know that I need teammates to do that. So that's a big goal, is to bring teammates into the funnel and allow them to create the space to help millions of people. So yeah.
Amazing. And so you're doing basically, if I'm understanding correctly, you have Purium, and this has a network marketing model, right? And then do you also have your own coaching, or is that part of what you're doing with Purium?
So that is in the mix too, because I'm pretty fresh to the somatic breathwork thing, but my whole intention was to combine the two, because whenever I first started, when I first found Purium, I was about 270 pounds, and I was just a mess, man. My guts were out of line, and I didn't know there was a direct correlation between gut health and addiction. So once I started getting my own gut health in order, I was like, wow, I feel great. I want to help people. And then I started helping people, and I started to realize that there was a breakdown in either communication, or there was people that just weren't able to heal themselves and bring themselves to a state of healing, even though they were doing the same things I was doing. And I realized just pretty recently that it was because they were holding on to traumas and different things, and they were stuck in a state of fight or flight. So once I found the breath work, I said, oh man, I lit up like a Christmas tree, man. I lit up, and I just knew that this was the missing link. So now they're going to be married. They are married together. And, I've recently started a breathwork community here in Panama City Beach. Me and my buddy Vic have started a company called It's Refreshing, and I provide breathwork service every Saturday at 8 o'clock. We meet at the Pour here, and it's a coffee shop. And then we go across to the beach. We do a little guided meditation, and then I teach people different breath techniques. And then we jump in the cold water, or the refreshing water, I should say. And then we come back to the coffee shop, and we give the people free coffee. So it's really cool to see this community start to pop up, and the cool people that we're starting to align with. So, I know that it's all in the works, and I just kind of get impatient sometimes, but I do realize that this is the reward of keeping the vision in front of me, and planting that seed in my own mind. So yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you, Christopher. And yeah, it's very interesting with gut health. There's been people, for example, that were sick and they got a transplant of feces, and their taste actually changed. So then they didn't like burger anymore because they got that transplant. So it really shows that what we call that second brain, the gut, is definitely often in charge of things like taste too. And that's really interesting.
Mhm.
And I love that you tackled that from different angle, adding the breath also and the trauma release. And I feel that's a very good angle. Going more practically into the monetization of the podcast, um, actually, do you want to hear my reflections on this?
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Always. Yes.
So I have another podcast, right, called The Light Leaders, which is my main podcast. And in it, I did an episode with my friend Thomas, who's a big leader in a network marketing organization called Corsair that recycles plastic. And through doing that, even though that episode only got about maybe 300 views, which is a bit low for my YouTube channel, The Light Leaders, it got me about, I think, 10 to 15 inquiry about the business. And
Wow.
so even though it's not my main thing, that I just do it a little bit on the side. Um, yeah, it was pretty good. So podcasting can definitely be a way to advertise network marketing models, for example, where you would typically invite a big leader from the from the industry, and then people who watch the episode would get inspired to contact you. And personally, when I do network marketing, I'm a little bit off put by people who do cold messaging and outreach. I don't like that. I don't want to participate in that. But I like the idea of sharing a message, people watch, and then they can DM me, and then we can have a conversation. That feels much better for me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I did that, and that worked pretty well. So that's one possibility of monetizing a podcast when you are part of a network marketing, is to interview the leaders of the MLM and get the viewer who are interested and who resonate to join. I wouldn't make the episode about the network marketing. With my friend Thomas, we talked mainly about cleaning the plastic from the planet, but then we obviously plugged in this. And then another possibility, because you talked about reaching out to leaders, the thing with a podcast is that you can go kind of 10x, 20x your following when you
Yeah.
have guests. So, first, I hear what you say about being a vibration match for sure. So, you want to have that. But then that's like a more energetic way to magnetize these people into your life and to collaborate with them. But then, on a very practical level, I have 6,000 followers on my Instagram. I can go to someone with 100,000 followers and be, do you want to be a guest on my podcast? And they're quite likely to say yes if it's a good match also on the topic and the value proposition. If I go to them and I'm like, hey, do you want to collaborate or have coffee? They probably say no, because there's a mismatch there. So what you could do is, one, have the leaders of your organization to get leads from the podcast itself, but then you could also interview people that you think would be amazing people you'd like to collaborate on. And then when you do the interview, they're much more likely to say yes. And then you guys get a good feel for each other. And, without expectations, it could be just a great podcast about what you wanted to talk about with that person, and you're connecting. But if it flows and you do it in a smart way, these people might be like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. I want to be part of it too. How does that land?
Bro, that sounds like the missing link actually. And yeah, I agree with you as far as like the cold spamming and stuff. I do get off put whenever when I listen to a podcast and I hear somebody plug their stuff right before the show or throughout the show. You know, they have to have ads. I get sometimes you need ads and things, but I do feel kind of off put about it. So I feel like there is a more organic way to incorporate that into the podcast itself, like just bringing awareness around gut health and saying, hey, this is what helped me. But yeah, I definitely feel that, bro. And now that you mention it and brought it to my awareness, I'm definitely going to be looking for people to bring onto the episodes. I've already interviewed. I know I've seen you with Jonathan David and a couple other people, and he's actually part of my team of regenerative health practitioners. So it's really interesting to have these men and women in my corner as far as that goes, because I can always bring them on, or I can bring some of their friends on that I've met along the way. So yeah, that definitely resonates, bro. And I'm gonna be on the hunt now for that. So I appreciate that.
Mm. Thank you, Christopher. Yeah, I had a reflection also on the parts that I recorded. Personally, I'm really not a fan of what some of those big podcasts do. For example, hey, this is sponsored by AGI, check them out. Doesn't feel very genuine to me. And so, how I like to do is to really embed it in the podcast. For example, 7 minutes into this podcast, I told the viewer, and I'm going to tell them again, that if they want to start a podcast, they can check the link and be on a conversation with me, like I'm doing right now with you, Christopher. And that feels very
Yeah.
genuine. And similarly, when I had my episode with Thomas, we were talking about it and why it matters to us and how people can join. And I didn't have an episode about something totally different and then be like, hey, join my MLM.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that feels good. And similarly in the light leaders, in the middle of the episode, there's always a time when it feels genuine to talk about my podcast coaching, because it's always aligned with the guests that I'm having there. And so it's a little bit of an improv thing, almost, to plug that into it rather than having a set recording. But I find that a lot of those big podcasts, they have millions of followers, so they can just advertise something, make good money for it. They don't have to put more work into
Yeah.
it. That's good. But for people who don't have that, being a little bit more strategic around either interviewing people you want to collaborate with, or making it more directly relating to your business. If people prioritize monetization, I usually recommend start with what the outcome you want from your business and reverse engineer the podcast you're going to create to fuel these goals.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense. And yeah, you're right. I mean, the big ones, like you said, the millions, guys that got millions of followers, it's easy for them to, oh, yeah, this is just buy this. Here's my gift code. And then throughout the thing, but even then, it's still like, I always fast forward. I catch myself like resenting the podcast and feeling some type of way about it. So I definitely think that there's an art to doing it. And I feel like if I can start out utilizing that and honing that art and honing that skill, the better off I'm going to be. You know, that way I don't ever have to plug and be salesy. You know,
Yeah.
because really it's all about making an impact in people's lives and helping them change their own lives. Because what you know, the whole space, I hear people talk about healers and different things like that, but we are our own healers. Nobody can heal us for ourselves, bro. People that are the healers, what they are great at doing is providing a space, creating a space for you or somebody else to find the healing for themselves. So that's
Mm.
really one of my ultimate goals with this podcast is just to raise awareness and create a safe container for people to feel you know, like they can do it themselves, you know, like I can give them the blueprint and they can tailor fit it to their own lives, you know.
Amazing. I love that. And I love your passion and I love your willingness to help. And I always like to balance it with also like what you get out of it. That's why I like to talk about the goals, whether it's sales expressions, number of views or subscribers or monetization, because it's just good to be clear. Like sometimes people they just want to give, but understand that life is life and sometimes you need to make money and sometimes you need to reach certain goals and to keep prioritizing the podcast in the long term. Often people will want to receive something clearly from it, and it's good that it's clear, you know. And I've had some uh, people I've helped who like they have so much money they really don't care about monetization, and that's genuine and that's totally fine. But for most people, if you're going to make good money from your podcast, it's going to be much easier to prioritize it and to stick to it. So I like to have these conversations also. I'd love to ask you a little bit more, Christopher, about the practicalities of your podcast. Where do you want to post? Do you want to do solo or with guests mainly? And do you want to do on video? And how frequently? These kind of things.
Well, so the ones that I've actually found that I've from personal, like just listening to podcasts, I feel like I enjoy the guests, having guests on, and I do like in interviewing guests. And in the same breath, I think I would probably it would probably be like a 60-40 or a 70-30, bringing guests on and then a solo cast, because there are days and there are subjects where I feel like if I can't find a guest that I for sure can get on and do a solo cast and talk for a good 20-30 minutes or even longer, you know. But I feel like with the way we are as humans, I think you start pushing after 30 minutes, people's attention span kind of starts to kind of fizzle out. I'm speaking from my experience. But there are some podcasts I've listened to, they're like 2 hours and I'm just glued in. So, you know, I think as far as the um, frequency is, I would like to put at least one out a week. That would be the goal, to interview at least one person a week, and start from there. I don't want to overwhelm myself with, you know, I want to do one every day. But I think one a week would be an attainable goal, especially with the time frame that I have. I've got a pretty open schedule at this point in my life, so I feel like I can work around other people's schedules and create a good podcast that way.
I love that. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And yes, one a week feels really good. That's usually what I recommend. I feel the sweet spot between like getting into it and getting that momentum. Momentum is important. So in general, when people tell me once a month, I'm like, either do once, at least 2 or 3 a month. If not, probably do it later. But once a week is good. And more than that, I agree, feels a little bit much. So I think that's a really good idea. And when do you want to start?
We're starting right now, man. So I feel like this is a good start, and I just figured out the name. I'm gonna have to look to see if this is even a thing, if there's one out there. But I think the Here and Now podcast sounds pretty good to me. So it's got a nice ring, because really the present moment is truly all that we ever really get. So to be able to bring people into this space here and now would be a true honor. You know what I mean? So I'm going to do a little more research on that and type it in once we get off this podcast. I will start to kind of do research around that. But I feel like that's a good name, the Here and Now podcast. It's got a nice ring to it.
Thank you, Christopher. Yeah, the niching and naming is often a discussion I have with clients around podcasting for sure, and they both have their pros and cons. What I recommend is go as specific as you can to stand out, but on something that you feel you can do for 5 years. So don't force into a niche that after 3 months you get bored out of it and you need to change, because
Yep.
that longevity, consistency is really important. But at the same time, if you have an opportunity to make it a little bit stand out from the millions of other podcasts, it is interesting. For example, my podcast, The Light Leaders, is more broad, but then I recycled some of the episodes that are with Fruitarians, and I called it the Fruitarian Podcast on Spotify. And it's actually doing really well, even though it's just recycled episodes, because people are much more able to find that podcast, and, and it's very specific. So
Yeah. Yeah.
again, they both have their pros and cons, but I couldn't rebrand myself to the Fruitarian podcast because I want to do other interviews, and then I would corner myself into a niche that I don't want to stay in. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I see that. And yeah, because I've thought about that even with my own Instagram page, because I'm the gut health gladiator. So it's kind of I wouldn't say cornered myself into a certain niche, but even though it kind of is, but in my bio, I talk about how I help people with traumas through breath work, but I've also thought about creating another page for breath work specifically. And yeah, I think you're right, bro. Not cornering yourself, and leaving some leeway for creativity and to consider the burnout factor, because yeah, there is that, or yeah, I'm just tired of talking about this. I want to talk about something else. So yeah, I feel that, and I'm gonna definitely, it inspires me to keep vigilant about what I want to do. Hey, buddy,
Yeah.
my dog over here barking.
Yeah, thank you, Christopher. And also in terms of timings, because we talked about weekly and burnouts. And when I work with people, I ask for 8 hours a week for 6 weeks, which is my signature program where we launch and get the first 5 episodes. And then they get trained also to keep going for 4 hours a week. So that's what's possible with Riverside, and with the right processes, is that you can do really good podcast, high quality, well edited, with good clips for social media in 4 hours a week. That's what I do now with my other podcast, the Light Leader. With this one, I just honestly put less effort into the clips and into the editing. It's a bit more quantity. So with this one, in 30 minutes after we recorded, it will actually be live and have a clip. But it's good to just to know these kind of timelines for people when they get started, and that's what is required to have something good.
Interesting. Yeah, 8 hours a week. I think that's totally palatable, bro. That's totally feasible. You know, um, Especially my life right now. Like I said, I've been blessed to have what I have these days, and time is one of my assets that I have, that I'm able to kind of put effort into things that I'm interested in. I don't really have to go to a 9 to 5 these days. I'm blessed enough to where I don't have to do that, and it's given me this amazing space to just sit back and kind of create. So I'm definitely into.
Amazing. Thank you, Christopher. I'd love to ask you, what are your main challenges that you're facing now that are ahead of you for the podcast?
Well, I think we talked about it beforehand, but I think the fear of Judgment was a big one, but I've kind of I've been working with Thor and a few of the other guys, and we've been posting every day on Instagram, and and I feel like a lot of the things that I've gone through in the past, and me embracing that stuff, I've kind of been able to get past that, bro, because I'm able to talk about things that other people would probably find cringy to even think about talking about.
Mhm.
So I find that that's one of my strong suits now, but I do find that getting out of my own way probably is one of the big ones. The limiting beliefs, I think is one that's holding me back, or that I'm working through. I'm not saying it's holding me back, but it's been a challenge to kind of work through that. And coming from a place of lack was a big one as well. I've come from a place of lack. I've come from a place of I need this, um, and overcoming that has been a big struggle as well. But it's been beautiful, man. It's been beautiful because I've started to align with people that have, like, honestly started helping me get out of my own way and kind of thrust me into the spotlight. So, yeah, those are a couple of the things that I think were challenges for me. But I think, like I said, this is going to be a good jumping off point. And now that I've got the Riverside app downloaded and all that stuff, I'm really interested to see how these edits come out. And I'm looking to delve more into the app itself so that I can just kind of learn it and utilize it for myself. Because I've been just using Zoom this whole time, and Zoom doesn't have any of that stuff. We don't have the editing apps, and you'd have to download it to CapCut or something else. So I'm definitely interested in utilizing this platform.
Yeah, yeah, Riverside is good. And just for information for our viewer, you're on your phone, which is like an Android that's not that new, and you will see it looks and sounds like totally all right. But then when you can figure it out on your laptop, it should be even better. And then Riverside is so helpful as long also as you know which feature to use. Some are not that good, and then create a process actually from invitation to publishing. It's like you that's what I like to have. I like to do that with my guests too. Is like you can see like the invitation, then you got the Calendly, then the pre-interview form, and then I have my cheat sheet in front of me to conduct the interview, and then I have my checklist for the post-production and that aligns with a certain strategy that I've designed for this podcast, and it's very very leveraged too. So in a couple of hours of my time, there's a lot of things that are helping for the business. So that's yeah the idea. But yeah, thank you for sharing the challenges. I do feel on the mindset like it's thank you for sharing vulnerably. I think it's very common, but it's good to acknowledge it, and it looks like you feel it and do it anyway. Which to me, if you don't have huge traumas around it, or you don't need to do like big therapy and something, then it's action, right? Action as a therapy and doing it anyway. And I love that you're doing that. Yeah. Um, yeah, cool. Well, thank you, Christopher. That was a great interview with touching upon the end. I'd love to ask you, was this valuable?
Oh, absolutely, bro. Absolutely. Um, you've given me kind of a blueprint for how I'm going to start interviewing my clients and different things, and my people that I'm going to bring on. Short and sweet and to the point, and really kind of just ask them, hey, man, how do you see yourself adding value to the world? That's really, I think, what you're doing as well, is like, hey, man, what is important to you, and how can I help facilitate that? Like, how can I help you, and how can I scratch your back? So yeah, I think this is a great and very valuable thing that you're doing, bro. And I'm definitely going to send some people your way to get on this podcast. I've got some people already in mind that are a shoe in for this, and that are actually looking for this specific thing to kind of catapult them into their own podcast, because I know that they've got similar goals and similar dreams. They're just not as vocal about them. So maybe you can help them get out of their own comfort zone and get them into the spotlight.
Yeah, let's do it. Thank you so much, Christopher, for that. Yeah, what are your main takeaways from our conversation today?
Well, I kind of thought this, I was a little bit nervous coming into it, but, I find that, like you said, action therapy, man, just getting in it and doing it is literally some of the best stuff that we can do, kind of just acting on our fear, stepping into the fear, for me has been just huge, and and creating a safe space for people to be vulnerable, bro, which is what you're doing. So I definitely look to emulate that and to bring that into this world on my with a little flavor of my own. I feel like I think that's the goal. For me, anyways, is to bring a little bit of myself and bring it to the world and allow people to show a little bit of themselves or all of themselves. So yeah, my number one takeaway, man, is just to do it, just to step into the fear. And it's never as bad or as daunting as it seems. Just getting out of the mind and back into the body. I really enjoyed the breath thing that we did, the little grounding thing. So that's going to be a part of my podcast thing. I think that's going to be pivotal, bro, is helping people get back into their body, get out of the head, get into the body, and that way the energy can flow, and the words can just come out from the heart.
Amazing. Thanks, Christopher. I'm glad that was helpful. And I hope that's helpful also to you who's watching this episode. Thank you for staying here until the end. And you can like, subscribe, and share if you want to support. And also leave a comment. What did you learn from this? Or do you have any questions? Read all the comments and answer to them all. Much love to everyone.